Okay, so let's start. So, I want to start with this thought. I don't want to dive right into this remedy and how we're going to use it. I want to start with this thought that there's this glass wall. And boy, I'm sure many of you are going to agree with me that keep the facts hidden. But now, because it's glass, it's not as opaque as it used to be. We have the internet, and we only have it. My sense is we only have a certain amount of freedom left on the internet. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but I think a lot of freedoms are being taken away on the internet. So we only have a certain amount of time, which is why, of course, I've started my Joette's Mighty Members on my own platform, so that we don't have to depend on this. I will stay here because I want this to be on Facebook, because I want to reach those people who are new, those people who are not interested in becoming Mighty Members. So I want to say hello to all of those who are watching this from my membership site, which is really great. I'm so excited that we got that up and running. So if you're interested, you can go to my front page, my first page on my website, joettecalabrese.com, and consider looking at becoming a Mighty Member. I'm including Facebook Live, but I'm also doing more. I'm doing videos, short videos, little moments. I have an idea, and I have a concept that I want to share with my members, my mighties as I call them, a remedy that I want to make sure that they own, some news flash that's come up, and I'm just doing it extemporaneously. So far we're doing them about every 10 days, but I actually want to do it much more frequently than that. I'm working on it. I'm really trying to get that more up and running. And I also want to remind you that I am not a physician. I am not telling you to buy anything that I sell in terms of remedies or medicines or anything like that. For any diseases, I tell you to go out and buy it, but I don't make any income on it. I have no affiliate programs. So this glass wall that feels like it's around us, if our vision is clear, we can see on the other side, and it's as though the jig is up. And I think this is happening because we have the internet. You know, we've always known that there's corruption. We have always known that. I mean, that's just a given. That's just human behavior. The degree to the corruption, I don't know that I ever realized to what degree it was, because I never really gave it much thought. But it's so ubiquitous that now, and it's so exposed, that it to me, it's a true call to action. So, you question things like public education. There are a lot of incredibly good teachers, but public education, I think, has been somewhat corrupted. If anyone's ever interested, check out Charlotte Iserby. You can check her out on YouTube. She's written some books. I can't remember how to spell her name, but phonetically, you might still get it. It's Isbyrt, I think, Bryt or something. Iserby. The T is silent at the end. She's an interesting read. John Taylor Gatto. These are the people I was following when I decided to homeschool my children. In spite of the fact that there are still a lot of excellent teachers out there, it's the what's behind it in many circumstances. What is the true story with this coronavirus? There's more to what meets the eye. We all know that. I mean, everyone here knows that, right? There's a lot of state and county corruption. I think the states don't want to lose their payment for the coronavirus cases, so they're calling simple people who are getting tests showing positive, calling them cases. People who are in motorcycle accidents are getting this reported constantly to me. Not just on the internet, I read it there too, but people are reporting to me. People who work in hospitals, nurses, administrators. I feel as though I have my hand. I mean, I don't talk with thousands of people, but I do meet with a lot of people from all over the world. This morning I met with someone from Ireland, couple days ago was someone in Italy. Before that, it was India. I have my hand on the pulse of a lot of different kinds of people in different parts of the world. And this has gone haywire, this coronavirus, these lockdowns, etc. That's the way I see it. And the other aspect of this is something that I've seen for many, many years, even before I started educating my children. And that was, if everyone knows that psychotropic drugs are dangerous, why are they not looking for an alternative? If everyone knows that antibiotics cause gut dysbiosis and food intolerance, is lifelong food intolerance, is lifelong gut dysbiosis, even rupture of tendons in certain categories of antibiotics, why is it still being used? Instead, what we're hearing is, oh, this is just a mild one. Or the other day I heard someone say, or someone wrote to me and said, they were taking, not the birth control pill, it's called the mini pill. Oh, so is it something that Minnie Mouse used, or is it tiny, or is it cute? And so these words are used to send us in a different direction. We want solutions. We deserve solutions. And no one is going to do it for us but us. It's totally up to us. And so when I hear things like, I wrote this down, because I watched this on the news the other night, given the delicacies of the situation, we need more information. Really? How much information do we need? How many people do we need to get sick before we start realizing that illness was iotrogenic? If you don't know the meaning of the word, do look it up. It's a very interesting one. Or how about this? There is no other way. This is all there is. These are the kind of things that are said when they or a person, and I don't mean that there's a conspiracy necessarily, but when someone wants to shut down inquiry, this is what they say. So I say, never take no for an answer. Your answer is no. Don't let theirs be no. No, it can't be done. Okay, thank you very much, and move on. Read between the lines. Whenever someone says no, make that your opportunity to bring up your dukes. And don't fight them one-on-one right there, but in your mind. Think in terms of there must be another way. There always is. No matter what it is. It's very rare that there isn't an alternative. Very rare. More often than not, there are more alternatives than what is being suggested. So don't buy into it. So that leads me to the remedy I want to teach you about tonight. Those of you who've been studying with me, excuse me while I take a drink of water. Those who have been studying with me, or have been studying on their own, you don't have to study with me, may have already figured out what this medicine is that I'm going to be talking about tonight. It is one of the more important medicines. If you don't own it, run, don't walk to Amazon. Run, don't walk to Boiron, 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 homeopathic. And when you check out, put the name Joette in the little box, and you'll get a discount. And again, I get no kickbacks. It's not an affiliate program. You just get a discount because I've arranged for that. I want you to own this medicine in 3 potencies. The medicine is Hepar, Hepar, sulfuricum, just the way it sounds, Sulphuricum, calcareum, Calcareum. Now, for those of you who are new to this and it sounds strange, no worries. The easy way to remember this medicine is you can just use 2 words and one is abbreviated. Hepar, sulf. Even though it is Hepar sulphuricum calcarea, the short version of the name is Hepar-sulf, and I make it a long E. I don't know if it's correct. It's the way I read it, the way I learned it. Some people pronounce it hepar. So I call it Hepar-sulf, and it is the quintessential medicine. In fact, I would practically call it almost a homeopathic antibiotic. It's not the only one, and I don't want you to use it for all infections. But I do want you to think about this medicine, especially for bacteria infections and bacteria infections in soft areas, soft tissue. Tonsils, throat, otitis media, conjunctivitis. What else? Whitlows, infections on the fingers, around the fingernails. Let's see what else. I've got them right here so I don't forget. Dental abscesses, not cavitations, not bone necrosis, not osteomyelitis. No. We're talking about the soft tissue so that you could actually feel it or palpate it and push on it. That is where we're talking about Hepar-sulf because it's a softer tissue. Acne. For many cases of acne, this is your medicine. Now, if you didn't know that and you have acne or someone in your family suffers from acne, I urge you, before you even listen to me on Monday nights or watch me on Monday nights, please go to my blog. Acne, Joette Calabrese, otitis media, Joette Calabrese, it's the other way around, Joette Calabrese, otitis media, Joette Calabrese, strep throat. It's great medicine for strep throat. I want you to look it up that way. And generally speaking, you'll find it on my blog for free with not only the information on this is the condition, here's the medicine, the potency, and the frequency, plus a small case to give you some frame of reference. This blog of mine and also other areas that I've written for in the past, such as Wise Traditions, which is the Weston Price Foundation's journal. I've written for those. I wrote a column for them for 11 years. I send you back and I give you this information. I'm really giving you a therapeutic index. Really, that's what my blog is. And this is what people are asking for. People don't realize when they say, well, where can I get all the medicines? Where can I get all the protocols, for each condition? What you're asking for is a therapeutic index. And although the Banerjee Protocol book is also, I would call, a therapeutic index, it doesn't cover everything. We wish it did, but of course it doesn't. I've got all the protocols. I think I own all of the protocols and all of the potentials for the protocols because I worked there for so many years. But that's a great place for you to get that information as well as my blog. And I want you to use that blog regularly. My promise to you is that I will keep this blog going for as long as I can, as long as I'm physically or mentally able, because it is important that we get this out to families. Every household needs to have this information. Let's get back to Hepar sulfuricum calcarea, otherwise known as Hepar-sulf. So when it's a dental abscess, we use it in a 6, okay? 6 potency. 6C, 6X if that's all you can get. If you're in the US and most parts of Europe, you can get it in a 6C. Some parts of the world can only get it in a 6X, and that's the way it used to be in the US, but now we are lucky to have 6Cs or Cs available as well. For acne, the potency is 200. For whitlows, which are the infections around fingers, around the cuticle of the nail, I don't use a specific protocol, but I've used 30s. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story because I think it helps when someone tells a story to help you remember how this is used. When I was a little girl, I used to get whitlows. They were infections right around the finger. And the first time I got one, it was quite swollen and painful. And my mother took me to a pediatrician, and he lanced it. And then a few months later, I got another one. And my father said, well, gee, all he did was lance it. Why don't we just lance the next one? We don't need to go to the doctor for that. So my father, my mother would hold my hand. I'd be in the kitchen. My father would sterilize the razor blade or whatever he used. Maybe he used a needle. I don't remember. They scrubbed it all down, and they would lance the infection, and it would go away. And then another one would come back. And years later, I stopped getting them. Then years later, I was working in my garden. I'm going to say it was so this was when I was maybe 9, 10, 11 years old. And so years later, I was working in my garden. I was in my 40s, and I had a little hangnail, and it was open a little bit, and I said the heck with it. I'm just going to work in the garden. And I didn't worry about it. And I worked in the garden, and of course, it got infected, but not of course. I had not had one of those infections in, 30 years. And I knew exactly what to use, but I didn't take it right away. I am one of those people who I don't want to take medicines for every little thing. I'd rather clean it up, see how it goes, and allow it to dissipate on its own as much as possible. So I let it go, and in short order, I don't remember exactly, but I think it was about a day or so, it got very swollen, very painful, and was shiny red and needed to be lanced or something. So, of course, by that time, I knew how to use Hepaar Sulf. So instead of lancing it, I took Hepaar Sulf. I took it in, I believe, it was either a 30th potency or a 200. I took one dose. The pain went away. It remained still. It was still there. But the pain, which was significant, it wasn't extreme. I would say maybe it was a 5, but it was noteworthy, went away in about an hour. But something else happened. And this doesn't always happen. And I know this sounds, what's the word I'm looking for? Odd. But something happened that many people have reported to me after having used homeopathy. And it's not happened many times, but this was one of those significant times that it did. Upon taking it and noticing a shift, it was more than that my finger was improved. Instantly, within a few minutes of taking it and feeling, because sometimes you can really feel these medicines acting, I went back to those days when my father used to lance the whitlows on my fingers. And it was as though I was back there. I know this sounds strange, but it was as though my memory brought me right back. I remember looking up at the clock that was above the sink. I remember the color of the tiles. It was so vivid, and I hadn't thought about those tiles in the kitchen and the clock above the sink in 50 years. Another thought that came, I remember the pot on the stove. My mother had these stainless steel pots, and when she would make potatoes, she would boil the potatoes in there, and the top would pop, 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 pop. The sound came back to me. It was as though I was in a dream, but certainly fully awake. And it all came rushing back. My mother saying, "Don't worry, honey." My father saying, "It'll be done in a second. Don't worry about it. This is going to be over with." The smell of the alcohol. They use alcohol. And then my father bandaging it all up. It was remarkable. If you've had an experience like that, I'd love to hear about it. An experience where all those years you should have taken that medicine, and then you finally took it, and it brought it all back and calmed it all down. There was a sense in me after having taken Hepaar Sulf for that whitlow decades later that there was a sense of calm. Like I'd found home. I don't know that you know what I'm talking about. For those who have used homeopathy, you might know what I'm saying. Now, I never had another infection there again. But I'm giving you this story because just like it's filled with pus and maybe a little bit of blood on the around the finger, the same thing can happen with acne. The same thing can happen with a boil, because in a way it's almost like a boil. Boils, this is a great medicine. hypersulfuricum calcarea for boils. So for the Whitlow, you could use a 30 or a 200. You could use that the same for boils. For acne, we use 200C. We don't, because acne is chronic. A boil is not, unless it's a chronic case of boils. And even with Whitlow's returning from time to time, you could call it a chronic condition, but we were looking at it as an acute. Each time it came up, I was treated, and then it came back again, 30 some years later, 40 years later. So I looked at that as an acute. And I think I may have used another dose. I don't remember the next day because perhaps the pain came back. I never had that sense again, though. I never had that, I'm home, this feels all right. The beautiful memory of my parents taking care of me, being in my kitchen back in 1959, 1960. It was lovely. Now, I've had that before in other ways, but that one was one of my more remarkable experiences with this great medicine, and it can happen with any of them. This is a great medicine for croup. Now, make sure you know what croup is, folks. A lot of people just assume croup means a cough. Before you call something a condition, make sure you've looked it up and you know what it is. Croup is that cough that sounds like a bark. Children, babies, like that. It is a specific sound, and it's frightening to the child, frightening to the parents. And croup that especially presents between 4 and 5 in the morning. So if it's earlier in the evening, maybe midnight, we would start with something else. And that, again, is on my blog. I don't want to go into all the remedies for croup. Now, my notes are here. I'm looking at Materia Medica, my Materia Medica. Use mine, use others. Just own a Materia Medica. It's a very good thing for you to have on hand. Let me make sure I've included everything. Certain coughs. And Dr. Pradeep Banerjee's protocol for COVID includes Hypersulf 6 every 3 hours during the worst part of the illness. So if it's just starting up, etc., then you use it every 3 hours. If it's, the person is pretty much over it, then you might not use it as frequently. You might use it only 2 or 3 times a day. Let me make sure I've got everything that I've covered that I want to cover here. If I didn't say ear, I did say otitis media. It's great for ear infections. Great for strep throat. It is actually specific for strep throat. So Hypersulf is for, what do we have in common here? What's common is infections that are generally soft tissue bacterial. Fascinating, isn't it? Instead of an antibiotic. Now, I'm not going to tell you that this is instead of an antibiotic in every situation, because antibiotics are used so ubiquitously. They are used so, what's the word? Even cavalierly. I was told years ago I had a mitral valve prolapse, and that because of that, I needed to, anytime I had my teeth cleaned, that I would need to have antibiotics. And I succumbed to it a few times, and then I started to learn more about alternatives and how damaging antibiotics can be, especially when used willy-nilly. And then on top of it, one of my father's closest friends was a world-class, truly a world-class cardiologist. He authored many books and traveled around the world and taught students and doctors, cardiologists all over the world. And when he listened to my heart, he said, yep, you have a mitral valve prolapse. But, and this is key, it's within the range of normal. So in other words, I have a normal heart that happens to have a little bit of a shift in it. And so that's when I said, okay, enough with the antibiotics, and I don't even take I don't even take a homeopathic medicine as a prophylactic when my teeth are cleaned. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not telling you that you do not need to do that, but good information is like gold. By the way, this doctor that I'm referring to, who I held in very high regard, also said once to my father and me, You know the best way to find health? You're going to love this, folks. Maybe you've heard me say this. One of the best ways to find health or to gain health is to get a really horrible illness and figure out how to get out of it. If you don't get sick or someone in your family doesn't get sick, I guarantee you will not find answers because you don't care. It's not important, right? It's simply not important. It's when you get sick and you go down this circuitous route, and first it's the conventional thinking, and then it's the slightly non-conventional, then it's the vitamins, and then all the supplements and Ziploc baggies, and we could keep going and going and going, and essential oils and then bam, we finally find homeopathy, and this is the medicine. This is the medicine, isn't it? Ingrown toenail infection, often it is the same. Cellulitis. Cellulitis is considered an infection. There are other medicines that can be more specific for cellulitis, but Heparsulf is definitely when it's at its infancy stage. There are others, and I don't want to get into too many others. I do cover that in my alternative to antibiotics course, and I also cover cellulitis and those more sobering conditions in my course called A Survivalist Guide. Okay, let's see. What if I don't have a 6? I would not use any higher than a 6 when it's a dental abscess. I just wouldn't do it. I would just make sure I got it. Now, in generally speaking, you know that my phrase is use what you've got until you can get what you need. That's the one exception. Don't use Heparsulf in a 30 or 200 on a dental abscess. That's my experience. I can't say that it is an absolute problem for everyone, but that's been my experience. Okay. Abscess on a rabbit caused by a common virus. Is Heparsulf enough, or do you also have to go after the virus itself? It's hard to say. Look, this is the way I approach this. We start with what we know. Give it a chance to work, keeping our mind open to the possibility we may have to use something else. But an abscess in general, I always think of bacterial. Now, I don't know rabbits. I used to have a lot of them in my garden. But I would start with something like that first. All right, staph infection. What's a staph infection? Think about what a staph infection is. Staph infection is bacterial. Hasn't happened to me, but I believe, okay, let's see. Oh, geez, I was thinking of cellulite. Different. All right. Speaking of cellulite, though, I will tell you, I've been swimming now every day, but for maybe 4 days because the weather was so inclement. What's today? The 28th. I started April 25th of this year and have swum for an hour, sometimes more than an hour, every day. And in open water, I know you've heard me say this so many times. I'm just so excited about it. I just have to share it with my friends. And I've not lost a single ounce on the scale. But I see such a difference in my body, especially recently. My legs are firmer. They're not perfect, but they're more firm. My shoulders, you probably wouldn't be able to see that, but it's more defined in here, and I'm loving it. So for those of you who are resistant to exercise, as I have often been in my life, I just wanted to share that with you. Swimming has been really great for me. The only problem with swimming is that it is dependent upon outside circumstances such as weather and pool availability. And thanks to all my friends here and in my membership, my mighty members, I am working now diligently to get our pool switched to salt water. I've thought about other possibilities, but apparently in Florida outdoor weather, unless you know otherwise, it's pretty difficult to use any other methods other than chlorine and salt. Okay. Sounds like healing on more than a physical level. You bet, Susan. That's exactly what I was describing. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but it was on a much deeper level. I was very frightened the first time my father lanced my finger, but after that, it almost became commonplace. And I felt cared for by my parents. I felt that my father was going to do the right thing. My mother was being soft and motherly. My father was being firm and clear-headed. And it was, in many ways, it was as scary an event as it was the first couple of times. It really was a positive part of my life. So let's see. Bacterial ear infection. Hepar fungal. Well, you know what? Hepar sulf is also great for fungus infections. I'm glad you brought that up. You bet. It's for, generally speaking, it's for bacterial and fungal infections. You bet. Okay, I healed my son's recurring croup with that protocol on your blog. Yes, Amy, good job. Very, very good job. I can't answer everyone's questions. I'm so sorry. Okay. Hepar sulf 6. Thuya 30, Kelly Carb, as well as Eupatorium. Thank you. Thank you for laying that all out. Replying to Amy, Mandy Mass, Amy Cardenas. She's got it all laid out. So read each other's information, folks. Oh my gosh, it's 8:35. I've got to go. The problem is I'm having too much fun with you folks. So we'll see you next week. If you're not a Mighty member, consider it. If you're not, no problem. Stay here for free if that's what you want. And with that, I say, God bless all of you. Mwah! And have a great week. Bye now.